All right, let's get right into it. We're heading back in time, about 2,500 years, to unpack one of the most bizarre and, let's be honest, kind of terrifying visions in the entire Hebrew Bible. It's from the prophet Zechariah, and it features this massive, unidentified flying object with a seriously scary purpose. So here's the setup. The prophet Zechariah is in the middle of a series of 8 visions, and an angel is basically his tour guide, showing him these incredible symbolic images. We're jumping into the 6th vision, and trust me, this one is a doozy.
And boom, there it is, in Zechariah chapter 5, verse 1. He looks up, and what does he see? A flying roll, or as we'd say, a flying scroll. Just picture that for a moment. It's not a bird, it's not some weird cloud. It's a scroll, a document, a piece of writing, just floating through the air. You've got to wonder, what is that thing, and what on earth does it say?
Well, luckily, the angel doesn't leave Zechariah or us hanging. The very next verse gives us some pretty specific details, so let's break down exactly what we're looking at here. The first thing the angel asks is, "What do you see?" And Zechariah's answer is incredibly precise. So that's the big question, right? Just how big are we talking? What kind of scale are we dealing with? Get this, in verse 2, Zechariah says its length is 20 cubits. Now, a cubit is an ancient measurement, about the length of a forearm. When you do the math, that comes out to roughly 30 feet long. To put that into perspective, that's longer than a standard telephone pole. And the width? 10 cubits, so about 15 feet. So try to imagine this, an object 30 feet long and 15 feet wide, completely unfurled and just flying through the sky. It's not so much a rolled-up little scroll, it's more like a gigantic, horrifying banner. Okay, so now we know what it looks like. But that brings us to the more important question. Why is it there? Its purpose is way more ominous than you might think.
The angel's explanation in verse 3 is absolutely chilling. This is not a message of hope. It's not some good news prophecy. The angel puts it plainly. This is the curse. And it's not some small localized problem either. This is a curse that goes out over the face of the whole earth. We're talking about a global statement of divine judgment.
So, what could possibly call for a curse this huge? Well, the scroll has writing on both sides, and it's calling out 2 very specific crimes. On one side, it's aimed at thieves. It says, "Everyone that stealeth shall be cut off." And on the other side, it's for people who swear falsely or lie under oath. It says, "Everyone that sweareth shall be cut off." These 2 sins, the ones that completely break down trust in a society, are being put on blast.
You know, the Bible commentator Matthew Henry had this really powerful way of describing it. He said we should see it as the flying roll of God's curse hanging over the guilty world as a thick cloud. It's just there, looming over everyone. You can't escape it. And in verse 4, things get even more intense. We learn that this curse isn't just some vague threat hanging in the air. Oh no. It has a very specific and very destructive job to do. It's like an active agent sent out to find its target. Verse 4 lays out this terrifying 4-step process. First, the Lord of hosts actively sends the curse out. It's not random. Second, it literally enters the house of the thief and the liar. Think of it like a heat-seeking missile for injustice. Third, it doesn't just hit and leave. It remains inside the house. And finally, it completely consumes the house. The timber, the stones, everything. The destruction is absolute. So, stepping back for a second, what's the big takeaway here? What's the point of this vision of a flying, house-destroying curse? It really boils down to the nature of sin and just how seriously God's standards are taken.
And to really get the severity of it, you kind of have to understand the language being used. Theft is called a transgression. In biblical terms, that means you're crossing a line you know is there. Like Psalm 51:3 says, you're deliberately breaking a known rule. Swearing falsely, on the other hand, is called a sin. That means missing the mark, falling short of God's perfect standard of truth, which Romans 3:23 talks about. The vision is showing that both of these, knowingly breaking the rules and failing to meet the standard, have incredibly serious consequences.
And that really is the core message of these 4 verses. This flying scroll isn't just a spooky symbol. It represents a form of divine justice that isn't passive, that doesn't just sit back and watch. No, this justice is active. It's precise enough to find a single house, and its judgment is absolute, wiping everything out down to the very stone.
And that leaves us with a pretty heavy question to chew on. You know, we live in a world where justice can feel slow,
or messy, or sometimes like it's not there at all. This ancient vision forces us to look at a totally different possibility. It makes you ask, what does it really mean for justice to be this active, this precise, and this absolute?